I could, if I really wanted to, was or would be to continue programming after this data item 3 here, just in a sequential fashion, but I'm not going to, because really we were looking at the algorithmic thinking, which we did on Word, on paper, the computational thinking, which we're doing now by programming. We looked at a kind of abstraction where this could be a list of cards, or it could be a list of words, or a list of anything really that we're searching for. That's the abstraction. But it's the decomposition that I really want to look at now. And there's not a great deal of decomposition to be done here. But every time I hear the word decomposition, I think of doing my work in functions. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. And I'm going to put it at the very top of my program. I'm going to make a few lines and I'm going to define my function. So now really what I'm doing is decomposing the problem. So this would be my while loop. So if I call it while find, so it's the while find, and I'm just going to put pass in there at the moment, and that's fine. I'm going to do exactly the same on this side, but this is my for loop, so I'm going to call this def for find, and the parameters need to go into here. Now we need to consider all of this, or all of this, as a separate piece of programming, a box, rather like function machines in maths. This is the box, the function machine itself. We need some inputs and we need some outputs. And it's the inputs to the functions that I'm looking at. And at the moment in my main program, so let's put main in as a comment. In the main part of my program, I have got my data and I've got my item, but I need to pass those into that function and also call it. So I'm going to start off by calling the function. So this is my while find, and on this side I'm going to do my for find. So I'm calling this function and I'm going to pass these in as parameters. So I'm going to start off with data and then item. So I'm going to pass in the data and I'm going to pass in the item. But I'm going to do a little trick because I know that inside this function, this box, I can actually have different, I don't need to call them data and I don't need to call them item. I could just call it D and I. And every time I mention D in here, we know it's data. Every time I mention I in here, we know it's item. So these are parameters and arguments to the functions. Again, I'm doing this so that you've got some knowledge when it comes to the exam and they talk in this sort of language for you. Right, so again, I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to pass in the data. I'm going to pass in the item, but inside here, I'm just going to use D and I. Means the same thing. So there's the start of my program. What I've done in this one, I've started looking at decomposing the problem. In other words, having functions. And then I've thought about calling the function, which is using the function name, and then passing in some arguments, which are taken up by these parameters and used inside the function body. So in the next video, we're going to start working on the function body. They'll be pretty similar. There are differences and you need to understand why and what the differences are.